Welcome to the Meet Me podcast, a podcast all about our multifaceted human nature and constant journey through self-discovery, with personal stories and insights around trauma, motherhood, relationships, spirituality, and individuality. I'm your host, Michelle Malik. Thanks for listening. Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the Meet Me podcast. As always, I'm your host, Michelle Malik, and I'm so excited to finally be sitting down to record this episode. It's definitely been a long time coming. I know that I have put off my podcast for close to probably 2 months now, and wanted to start this episode kind of with a few life updates just to tell whoever is listening what's been going on with me, but also some of the themes that I feel like have been recurring in my life. And where I'm at now, I have this new revitalized energy that I'm excited to bring into this project, create a little bit more structure around this podcast as well, and just take it a bit more seriously. I think part of why I started putting this off, I had a lot of valid reasons that I'll touch on, but outside of those, I think that my disorganization was getting the best of me. And so I'm really excited to structure out my episodes a little bit more clearly, and we'll have a regular release date. When I started the podcast, it was really important for me to just sit down and put things out there, feeling like I really had to break the seal and just get over my initial fears and worries and just post when it was ready. But now I am looking at this from a different perspective, and I want to just have a little bit more of a foundation. So moving forward, I do plan to release on a bi-weekly basis on Wednesdays. So you can expect episodes every other Wednesday to start, and I'll of course update as those things change. But really excited to be diving back into it. As I mentioned, these last few weeks, couple months have been a bit of a whirlwind. I know in my last episode, I had talked about getting laid off from my corporate job, and it's so funny because as much as I wanted that to happen, I mean, genuinely, I had asked for it and it came into fruition almost exactly as I had pictured it. I kind of want to touch on some aspects of manifestation without diving too deeply into it, but as much as I had asked for that and was really looking forward to the free time that I would have, not having to dedicate all those hours to my full-time job, that time went by so quickly, and I wasn't able to take advantage of it to the fullest as much as I thought I would, just due to some of my other life events that were going on. One of the big things that had happened since last episode was we had been through this transition of getting my son into daycare. There was some changes kind of back and forth with our nanny situation, getting him in daycare. He ended up getting extremely sick pretty much right off the bat. So we had to pull him out, and then of course our entire house got sick as well. So that was tricky to maneuver, but I was sick the longest. I think I was sick for almost 3 weeks. It was just a standard cold that turned into a sinus infection, and I didn't quite know what was going on, so it just dragged out much longer than it needed to. And I had a lot of stress on top of that all. You know, that was kind of my initial reason for putting out an episode. I feel like it was very valid at that time. I just really couldn't think of anything outside of just my day-to-day survival, trying to make it through, taking care of my sick son, taking care of my job search, which I am, grateful to have found a position. And so I was able to find employment, start my job while I was still sick. It was just a lot going on. And then on top of all of that, we received a notice to vacate our property at the end of September. And so we're just now settling into our new house now. I wanted to kind of do this episode as more of like a recalibration of not only for myself and, creating a structure around the podcast, but also just getting really clear about what it is that I'm doing with this and what my goal is really at the end of the day. Because what I've found over these past few weeks, couple months, is that although my initial delay in getting an episode out was valid. I definitely needed the rest. I needed to kind of step away from anything that was taking my energy. As more time went on, I started to feel an aversion to it for other reasons. And I wanted to kind of talk through that because I really had to like come back to myself and come back to center as far as what the purpose of this podcast means to me. And so while I was going through all of this, and again, I had asked for getting laid off, that came into play exactly how I envisioned it. The job that I'm in now, again, practically fell in my lap. I started it literally a month after getting laid off, which I had also asked for a month off. So I was just feeling so in flow with my manifestations coming to light, just feeling really in tune with the universe, synchronicities were aligned, just everything was in a really good spot. And so a couple weeks back, I had done a poll on Instagram, just trying to decide what my next topic was going to be. I had a few that I was juggling, and it was decided that I was going to do an episode on manifestation and synchronicities. And I was so excited to do that because, again, at the time, I just felt like things were just falling into place. I felt like I had a really clear vision of what my life was going to look like as I'm, on this path, kind of working towards my bigger goals and all of these things. And so I was really energized by that. But then the funny thing about manifestation is that it can sometimes throw curveballs at you. And this is something that I am well aware of and, have been trying to accept along the process. For example, with our notice to vacate, that came very unexpectedly. We had to rush and kind of figure out a new place to live very quickly. And I'm so grateful that we did. And, even throughout the stress of the move and figuring all of that out, I felt still very aligned at that time because my husband and I had been talking about like having a fresh start in our home and really cultivating like a better, more comfortable home life. Because when we had moved into our last house, I was like 8.5 months pregnant. It was a really difficult time for us, going through like a huge transition. I also had one of my family members that was living with us for a bit. And so there was just a lot of different things happening within our home that kind of distracted us or didn't allow us to really set the foundations for like our organization, where things needed to go. I mean, I feel like we lived in that house for like close to 2 years, and I felt like we never fully settled in. And so it was something that my husband and I had talked about multiple times about, starting fresh, getting rid of all the clutter, getting rid of everything and starting anew. And so this new house is definitely an opportunity for us to do that. And we definitely jumped at the chance and took advantage of it to the fullest. I'm excited because I now have my own office/spiritual room here. And so it's really, again, just kind of motivating me, allowing creative juices to start flowing again. But when I talked about kind of my aversion to recording the manifestation episode, I noticed that I was getting re-triggered or having limiting beliefs pop up again. And it was mostly due to the fact that the job that I'm in currently, again, I'm extremely grateful to not be unemployed at the moment, but certain things started to shift within my position fairly quickly. I was told one thing, sold a certain image of how things would go, and I'm finding that it's not quite what I thought it would be. And at first, I found myself feeling really stuck because I was repeating some of the patterns that I found myself in my last job that, I wanted to break out of, that I was, really excited to finally come out of. And then to find myself back in those patterns was really disheartening at first. And I found myself doubting myself, my intuition, my worth, and also, especially in regards to the podcast, the value that I could provide. I started thinking about things in a way of like, why would I put out a manifestation episode right now when, these are the things that I thought I manifested. I thought this job was going to solve all my problems or at least get me exactly where I wanted to be. And now look at me. I'm not happy. I'm finding myself in these, again, repetitive patterns and cycles. And why? Like, I was so frustrated by that. And it really took me a moment to step outside of the situation and look at it for what it is. You know, as I've discussed before, I mean, the universe, God, will throw things in our paths and sometimes have us relive certain situations, relationships, karmic type patterns. You know, those things can be really repetitive at a certain point in order to give us another try and another chance to look at it differently. And so when I really marinated on that fact, I had to look at my current situation for what it is and what it is that I value, what it is that I really want in my career, you know, my financial stability, all of that. But in regards to my doubt from my aversion to putting out an episode, I realized that that actually came from a much deeper place. I often struggle with my limiting beliefs, as I've talked about before, and kind of getting in my own way. But I realized that I was falling into the trap or the limiting belief of my current state not being valuable to others. You know, and I think it really came from partially like the comparison that I feel. I follow a lot of other spiritual healers and listen to a lot of different podcasts, and a lot of them are kind of at a very well-established place. You know, they do this fully for career. They do manifestation workshops and, you know, all these different things that I would love to eventually get to. But I'm clearly not there right now. And I had to think about what it is that I was trying to accomplish by putting this podcast out. And my goal was never to be a spiritual expert or to have all of the answers. I named the podcast specifically Meet Me because, yes, of course, I wanted to introduce different facets and factors of my personality and my life, but I also felt like it really encapsulated the idea of like meeting me exactly where I'm at in my journey, in my life, with all the trial and error, all of the messy things that, you know, all of my past experiences that have brought me here, but also my current experiences that I'm still working through actively. Because I felt like there was value in hopefully somebody hearing themselves as I'm kind of working through these things live time or taking away different lessons from my experiences. So once I kind of recentered around that, I am so happy to be sitting down and just recording this again as sort of like a recalibration, resetting my expectations with this and releasing some of the pressure of having everything look and sound in a perfect quote unquote way. Because no matter, and this is really a message to myself and something I really have to tell myself over and over is like, no matter where you're at in your journey, whether it be spiritual, career-oriented, whatever goal, self-love journey, you know, whatever goal it is that you've set out for yourself or the things that you're trying to pull in and cultivate into your life, wherever you're at on that journey, you are valid in your individual experience and what it is that you're going through in order to get there. And I think I had to realize that yes, I might be finding myself kind of caught in a repetitive cycle or caught in maybe a bit of a karmic lesson that I have to work my way out of right now. But rather than letting that invalidate my insight or opinion on manifestation, I realized that I think this is actually just giving me more experience to be able to come out on the other side with better information, better knowledge. You know, I think that a lot of the times when we set out to learn something or do something new, it's like we want to get straight to the finish line. And I definitely feel that for myself very often, where it's like I would love to just fast forward, 5-10 years when I'm doing everything that I am setting out to do. But where I'm at currently, maybe 5-10 years away from my end goal or what I think would make me feel really fully fulfilled is just as valid and important, because this is the building block and this is the steps that I need to take in order to get there. And so I'm really glad that I kind of came to this, because I really have been putting it off and really doubting myself and my worth and what I had to share. And so I wanted to just remind myself and anybody listening, like, it's okay to accept and know that we're not where we want to be yet. But I think if we just continue to show up authentically, share what we feel like sharing, give value where we want to give value, that feels true to ourselves, true to our nature, there's really no way that it can go wrong. And so I am really feeling, again, this like revitalized energy around even just this creative project of the podcast, because I want to just come to a place where I can sit down, record what I want to record, have some topics outlined, but not put so much pressure of like having to be perfect or having to know how I'm going to get myself out of this current situation. There was a while where I was thinking like, maybe I just wait a little bit longer, see how this plays out. And then when everything comes together, I'll put out a manifestation episode. But again, I'm realizing that like this is part of my process, and the things that have been coming through to fruition, I am extremely grateful for. The things that maybe are taking a little bit of a detour or a redirection, I'm also learning to accept that's just part of the process. And I know I shared that in my previous episode as well, of like allowing these detours and redirections to really just guide us along the way. But I'm coming back into my trust for myself as well in regards to the intuition. Some of the red flags that I had throughout my interview process for this job, I kind of ignored, and I'm paying for those now. And so again, just another quick reminder of like listening to your intuition. It is your guiding light. And if you find yourself in a sticky situation like I'm currently in, having the awareness of what is being repeated in the situation and how can I react and look at it differently. Those things have really been a saving grace for me as I maneuver through this interesting time of life. So I really just wanted to record something, get it out there, break the seal yet again, and just hopefully get you excited for what's to come. I feel like I am just remembering that this podcast is called Meet Me, and I want you to meet me exactly where I am, exactly where I stand, flaws and all, trials and errors, as I'm kind of going through this life that is so convoluted and messy at times, but beautiful all at once. And I hope that you are excited to hear what I have to share. I'm looking forward to sharing new stories, new insights, and I do plan to start having guests on fairly soon as well. So excited what those conversations will look like. But thank you so much for all of the support that I've received up until this point. The messages I've received of what resonates, the encouragement to keep going. I really, really appreciate all of that. And as always, you can find me on Instagram if you want to connect at _Michelle Malik. I am taking a step back from offering private sessions on a more scheduled basis or promoting it as fully as I was before. Just as things kind of settle in with work, life, everything, I am still offering free consultations on a case-by-case basis. So if you have any interest on experiencing a healing session with me, have questions about what that would look like, talk through some of the goals that you would like to accomplish with that, my DMs are always open for that. So don't hesitate to reach out. It's just not something I can really dedicate, again, a structured promotion or schedule for at the moment, but definitely would love to connect with you and discuss how we might be able to fit that in on a case-by-case basis again. So thank you so much for your time. I look forward to sharing with you again so soon. And until then, bye.